my name is Christine Patrick. I own the Winchester Book Gallery. It's an LLC. Winchester Book Gallery owns this bookstore. I purchased it in 2011.
Excellent. And what inspired you to purchase the Winchester Book Gallery?
So my family and I moved here in 2000. We've raised 2 children here. My husband is around here too. And I had run other people's businesses. I ran a heating air conditioning company. I ran a physical therapy practice. And I was good at running a business. And I saw the bookstore come up for sale. And I thought that would be a great way to use my academic degrees of religious studies and philosophy to run a business.
Awesome. And what year was it again, you said?
2011.
All right, so 2011, in the past 13 years, you've seen a lot of evolutions in the area here.
Yes.
Have you moved locations in the past since 2011, or was that prior to you purchasing the business?
No, we bought the bookstore and it was in a location that it had been just up the block since, well, it had been there for 42 years. And we decided, my family and I decided to buy the building that we're in now, and that made it a little more stable of an investment as a bookstore. It also is a better shape. The previous space was a square. This is long and skinny, so it lets everybody browse wherever they want, as slow as they want, and really get lost in the bookstore.
Now, did you close the other businesses as you opened this, or have you been multi-balancing all of these businesses?
I didn't own them, so I just went from job to job, and then I've stuck in this one for longest.
So this is your first business as a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, to walk us through that story and your family's deciding to make that big step. Kind of walk me through the emotions and kind of what's going on in life that kind of makes that decision kind of give the momentum forward.
Well, so the decision was kind of it felt like a whim in some ways, but I'd done bookkeeping, I'd run LLCs, I had helped small businesses kind of grow, I'd helped start up franchises, I'd done remodels, all for other businesses. And when the bookstore came available, I think it's a really vital part of our Old Town. Old Town Winchester is a community of businesses and people that's been around for 200 years. It was a trading space for so long before that it makes sense that this community has supported a bookstore, and I was excited to run it as an independent bookstore.
Now, internally for you, our podcast series, we focus on Main Street businesses and talking about the spark of entrepreneurship and the spark of business owning, and really kind of what made you transition really to the second where you're like, I want to control a little bit more of my life, because a little bit more you're going to get control. Also, you're going to bring those responsibilities in,
right,
and ride that roller coaster and those risks.
And we do that regularly. I mean, the whole gamble of owning a bookstore is guessing what people are going to buy. The publishing industry is a huge industry, and to get a small piece of that as a brick and mortar is incredibly complicated. And while I knew a lot about running a business, running a bookstore is the opposite of most businesses, because you're just taking a piece of culture and trying to introduce it to your community. And I just really, the spark was that I love our town. We have an incredibly diverse town with diverse businesses. When my kids were little, I would joke about, do you know what that person does for a living, and how cool that person is here for you to know and see what books they're buying and to learn from them. And the bookstore really feeds that. I mean, I have people who, of all walks of life who shop here, and that's what we want in Old Town Winchester.
I'm struck by, in a great way, about what you just said about the responsibility of a bookstore to take the culture and introduce it to your community.
It's a balancing act, right?
Talk a little bit more about that, because that's amazing. Yeah.
I always want, when I buy all the books for the store, the ones you ask for and the ones you don't know about. And the goal is always to move the conversation forward, to have you learning wherever you are in your place in life. And so I do that in studying history or math or sports or fiction. And it's interesting because it shows off what our town wants to buy, right? They have to purchase it in order for me to survive, right? There's a financial game here. But my sales reps from really big publishers are amazed at the diversity of books that I can sell. I can sell punk history books in our town. Well, of course I can. It's Winchester. We've always had records here. We've always had music here. It makes sense. But my reps that come from New York don't think that's what we are. And so I think that's really fun.
And the most intriguing things I find that when we're in these towns, it started as I've lived in cities my whole life, and it was really knowing what types of towns I grew up in, and knowing that those towns were only a day trip or a weekend trip away, and in letting people understand that these little gems exist where it's not all just cornfields, and while those cornfields are amazing and those dairy farms, there's also really great little communities like this, and it's incredible to hear that, you know, it's more than just a business, because especially one thing we get into a lot today is with everything in culture today. And especially being that we're in a town and we're in the southern part of the Mason-Dixon line and we're in West Virginia, you would not expect to hear from what people on the other side of the world and the other side of the country are taught about West Virginia. They would never hear somebody would say something like you just did.
Well, and I think that's what's so interesting. And I think Winchester, on the edge of Virginia, the way we are, people often think that we're a bedroom community for Washington, but we've never been that. We are an economy in and of ourselves because of the transportation opportunities that happen here. So we get all kinds. We get top, executives running Procter & Gamble. We get the regular farmer who's selling peaches and is telling us, if you don't buy them today, I'm not going to have any more. I mean, we have that diversity of community that I think shows strength, and I think that's really exciting to have you feature that in towns. I mean, I'm a city person. I grew up in DC. My dad's from New York City. I love cities. Winchester gives you that without the expense, first of all, but also less of the hustle. Like, you can hustle as much as you want, but also you can just go for a walk and have a beer.
Exactly. And I'm not on this camera, so I realized I said West Virginia because I'm bouncing between the border every day. So.
I wasn't even correcting
and
you.
I just realized it as I said it, so I want to make sure,
What's interesting too is that Winchester and Frederick County, that's around us in Virginia, developed only in the last 10 years. We had one Walmart, one Target, and two grocery stores, and they were all inside the city of Winchester, which is actually an independent city. It's not a part of the county around us, which is different. Virginia has a lot of those. But Frederick County, only in the last 10 years, built hotels in the county, built a Walmart or two, built a Target, built those things. And it has changed the economy of Winchester, but it's also made people realize that they treasure Old Town and what it offers. And so it's important for a bookstore to be here.
And to credit that, I mean, like I was telling you off camera, I haven't been out here in 20 years, but that's what I remembered was this area. It was this area specifically.
You had to come here because that's where the doctor was. That's where the hospital was. That's where you got shoes down the street. That shoe store's still open. That's where you came to get a tux for prom. It's where you came to get a tux for your wedding.
I think I might have bought my first pair of wrestling shoes at that shoe store.
You definitely did. And the person whose father started that store still shops in my shop, right? And so we go old school, and then we go, young parents who are moving here from Ashburn because they really want a small town feel and they want our small school district, which isn't perfect, but it's people working really hard to try to create community.
When you talk a little bit about from starting this and coming over 10 years now, you've been running this and seeing the different changes in society, but also in technology and things like that, running in a bookstore, do you find that the digital world is useful for you, or is it really the core is foot traffic in here, or is it a hybrid between the two of what you're doing?
To run an independent business and an independent bookstore in this world, you have to say yes to all the things. The only thing I haven't said yes to is TikTok, only because I don't think I can make money that way. But I say yes to everything. So we sell fully online. We've always delivered, we've always mailed. We just want people to meet them where they are. When they come to my bookstore, maybe they live an hour away, then they use the website to order because they love the bookstore, right? I want to make it an experience, but I try to make it so that my digital platform reflects what we do here. And I couldn't do what I do here without technology. I buy from all the big publishers, and I buy from a lot of little ones, and I can't travel to go talk to them, and they don't come to me anymore. So it's really cool because I can do it all digitally.
How often do you get people that come in that can't find a book online, and then is that a fun journey to try to find? I know it's not probably every day, but...
Oh no, it's every day.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Oh yeah, every day. I have people say, oh, you can't get this. They love to come at me with the negative. I'm like, well, let's just see what I can do. And I can usually do it. I usually, because I deal directly with the publishers, I know what's in print. I know why something isn't available. I can often beat the big online stores because I can see their warehouses. And when I order directly from Penguin Random House, like the biggest company on the planet, I get a book in 2 days, always, right? And so just managing those expectations is what the business does, and then that's what builds our reputation, and it's really interesting.
And when during COVID, how did you guys do any big pivots or anything like that, or how did you kind of operate during that time?
Hi there, how are you?
Hi.
Oh, you're good. You're fine. No, you're good.
Pause.
You're good. Yep. Nothing's live. You're good.
Can I help you with anything?
No, I was just walking through.
Oh, feel free.
Thank you.
Yep. So in COVID was really interesting for bookstores in general, because what people found is they were spending all of their time looking at screens and they wanted physical books, right? And so Libra FM is an audiobook company that isn't owned by the big one, and Libra grew huge because they support independent bookstores. And we said, okay, you want to listen to audio when you go for your daily walk in COVID and you don't want to see anyone, right? You can do that and listen to podcasts and listen to audiobooks. Well, bookstores, we instantly could pivot, right? We didn't have, even supply chain was very limited, the problems we had. And so the goal was to just supply our customers as best we can. I had already done door delivery, because I always have people that I don't think should be driving anymore, and they live around the corner, so I've always dropped things off at people's doors. And I just said, sure, we can keep doing that. I started charging for it, and I put a limit on it so that it was manageable as a business. I have always mailed, I've always shipped, I already had a website, so I just was, okay. I kept all my employees, they all had work to do. Our bookstore is long and skinny, so it made distancing really great, because you could have 3 or 4 people in here masked, and it was comfortable. So we came out all right.
Awesome. Well, walk me through a little bit about this specific area in Winchester and kind of what role. I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but I want to dive just once more on the role of an independent bookstore, and the reason being because you see them in different areas that they're either very much struggling, very much thriving, or kind of you don't really see a lot in the middle. And so talk a little bit about, and because I want to, you have a different strategy too with making the investment in the real estate. And I think that's a big, from a business standpoint, is a big strategy too.
Some places they can't. I mean, you're not going to buy a whole building in New York unless you're, a really big bookstore. But, I think that the idea of trying to reflect community and being a part of it makes it so the bookstore can thrive, right? So whether we're, we don't make huge margins. None of us do in bookselling. Bookselling, the price is on the book. I only am playing the game of what I can buy it for, right? So I play the strategy game, and the customer doesn't ever see that. It just is the price. That's the opposite of the clothing store down the way, because they buy it really cheap and they mark it up and then they can mark it down. A bookstore can't do that. So it's incredibly complicated, but what it does is let me pivot supply in a town this size to have what people want when they want it, and it lets me buy 1 or 2 of a book instead of always having to buy 20 or 30, right? And that lets me have the children's books, the book club books, the school books, all at the same time. I don't know if I really answered your question.
No, you did fantastically, and it's really an interesting dynamic that I've never thought about it, even from retail, and then also from a consumer's perception, that changes things as well as far as how you perceive
I've always
business.
had a strict policy all the time I've owned the bookstore. I don't do sales.
Yeah.
I don't do discounting. The
Right.
only discounting I do are to teachers in their classroom. They get 20% off. And book clubs, if you buy consistently from me, I will give you a discount on a book club book.
Excellent.
But I can't do it because it's a different price structure.
And with that talk about the evolutions with the book clubs and things like that, what things in the past 10 to 15 years, I guess, in this industry have you seen changing that have helped kind of keeping people going to bookstores? Is it book clubs? Is it you were talking about some book pairings with some local alcohol distributors and things like that?
Yeah, with wine shops, with vineyards. We go off-site fairly often to celebrate community events, and I'll do a table and have it curated to a certain way. Also, I mean, social media, I can have an author who's come here before sign and then tag the bookstore, and people will know to come here and get it, right? So there's a lot of cross-pollination that happens that's really helpful to the bookstore.
Are like author readings and in-store readings and stuff like that still kind of a thing, or have they kind of gone through?
See my calendar
Perfect.
behind me?
Excellent.
Yeah, so we do a lot. We usually do mid-level authors or self-published authors just because it makes it trackable. I have to be able to sell the book. That's my only game. But usually I put an author at the front of my store, inside the store, and if they talk to customers, they can sell a lot of books. We have great knock on wood, foot traffic on a regular basis. So when I put an author in the front on a Saturday, you can have 50 or 60 people walk past them. And if they talk to people, we sell a lot of books that way.
And talk a little bit about on the outside of the doors here and kind of the stretch and where we're at and stuff like that for people that may have never been into the Old Town Winchester area.
So Old Town Winchester has been a center of this industry in this valley for a really long time. In 1972, Ira, whatever his name is, I'll get that wrong, at Bell's, he decided they should close it and make it a walking mall. It took 2 years to close it to traffic. And as soon as they did, they built the Apple Blossom Mall. And so all the big stores that were down here moved to the shopping mall. But it has thrived, and the turnover of restaurants and clothing stores have been interesting to watch. In the last 10 years, we've seen breweries, really great breweries. We have 6, I think, within our 2-block radius. We have really good restaurants, some that have lasted 25 years. You know, it's just an easy way to come and spend a day. So you were talking about, we're a great day trip, we're a great weekend trip. We have lots of people who come out, stay downtown. We do Airbnbs and hotels, and there's lots of ways to be down here.
That's awesome. What about when you're curating the collection and kind of planning out everything on are you using national industry data, local industry? How are you trying to choosing, or is it kind of going with your gut and kind of when you lay everything out?
It's all of the above, but I buy seasonally, so I just finished buying for Christmas, and I use a platform that is unique to booksellers and publishers. It's called Edelweiss. It was developed by a bookseller, and it lets me see my point of sales data compared to what they're selling me in a new season. So I can say, I don't really want that book, and then I can look and say, oh, but you sold 20 of them last season, you probably need to get the next one, right? And so I can remember a good amount, but the comparative point of sales data is really useful, especially as I chart out cash flow gains and how you do that.
And as far as your specific layout, as far as this store, is there anything unique to like your store that maybe other bookstores might not have done? Is it something in the local section or anything like that as well?
So my bookstore is long and skinny. We did a crawl for Independent Bookstore Day last year that went from Arlington to here, or actually to Wardensville, and it was really fun to have customers from Arlington come in my bookstore because it's like 4 times bigger than any bookstore in Arlington because they're really tiny. They do a lot of business, so it's fine. You know, big or small, it doesn't matter. But I have a flexibility of moving sections, so that makes it dynamic for people. And then we have a good collection of local history, the local historical society, local authors. I'm somebody, though, as a bookseller who loves to put a local author in the section they belong in so that they are discoverable by people who are just looking. And I do that a lot.
How about from customer relationships? With this being an independent local bookstore, you probably have a lot of direct relationships with the customers and things like that. Is it to the point with some of them where you might actually see a book and automatically you're at the point where you think of the customer of who might actually like that?
100%, right? So I just got an advance copy of a really big book that'll come out in November, and I'll be really nice to a customer who's been asking me for it for a year, right? And he'll buy the book too, but I know that this book he's ready for. So I do that every day. I can do that with cookbooks. I can do that. Yeah, it's really fun.
That's awesome. And for you personally, how were it obviously wasn't just a business. You have an obvious passion for books in the literary world. Talk to me a little bit about your life prior to all of this, and were books always a part of your life? And at what point did books really become something that?
So I am always been a reader. I always got in trouble as a child for reading because I don't understand the stopping at the end of a chapter thing. Always got in trouble. I was always a reader. My degrees are academic degrees, so I have a comparative religion degree in Buddhism and other things, and I have a philosophy degree. And then I went into business because you have to make money. So what coming around to owning a bookstore let me flex that knowledge in a way that was more interesting. Studying religion is really studying culture, and owning a bookstore is really reflecting culture. So having history books that really talk about the history that is relevant, and they don't have to be always new. They can be a classic that you can mix in, or doing a restock on classics, which we sell a lot of classics, and putting a bent on that has a reflection that I know will move in my town. And like those kind of things come from a curious mind, but also my experience. I also raised 2 children here, and my children are, my daughter Lauren works here, she'll walk in soon. She always was a reader, but they influence too, like what their teachers are looking at and what their friends are reading.
Perfect. Well, that's, and what else about me see real quick what I was going to say there. Was the advice for others that are looking to start a small business. Anybody in this area or anywhere else that might watch this and say, you know what, I've been wanting to do that and I needed that extra push. It might be this conversation.
I would say it's great fun, right? It's hard work, and I do 90% of the work myself. I do all my own bookkeeping, all my payroll, all of those things. I think that stuff is fun. Make sure you know how to do everything you're asking anyone else to do. Because when it's your own business, you're passionate about how it goes, and it's important that your employees learn how you want something to be. So my staff has a lot of independence because they work by themselves in this bookstore every day, and they can reset a display or reface something, and we do a lot of conversations about that's awesome, you stretched my brain, or I'll say, nope, we can't do it that way because X, Y, or Z. And so being clear about what you're doing and knowing how to do it is really helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christina.
You're welcome.
Thank you. This was fantastic.
Was it all right?
Yes, absolutely. If you're an aspiring entrepreneur or one that's looking to expand, contact the FreeMind Network today and we'll help you scale, we'll help you start. We're going to be there for you in your corner.
You know my story, right? Rise to fame from the pain to glory, right?